Hello and welcome to Perspectives. A strange rumor while I was driving to the studio on Twitter that any tweet which is against PMLN, the user is being blocked or the Twitter account is being suspended. I would like to inform those who are saying this that PMLN does not own Twitter. And I don't think PMLN has the kind of clout that they can tell Twitter to block a user's account because they tweeted against PMLN. We need to become more sensible. We need to become more aware. And we need to be more responsible. Spreading these rumors will not get us anywhere. There may have been careless statements by ministers and governments and leaders in the past, and there will be careless statements in the future, and that's all right. That is the process of evolution, and that is the impact and power of media. Media has this great capability, I believe, of steering nations into a direction. Media has the capability to start wars, to end wars. Media has the power to destroy nations. Media has the power to build nations, to create mindsets, destroy mindsets. Media has the capability to steer what our future, to determine what our future will be. Now, when we say media, there's new media, there's old media, there's advertising, there's plays, there's news, there's short film. All of that becomes media. But advertising has a very unique impact. It can give out messages. It can send signals which are subliminal and sow seeds in our brains of a thought which is that of the future. And also it can sow seeds of thoughts which are counterproductive. So what is media conditioning? Since the 70s, we're hearing about subliminal messaging. Now, the subliminal messages may be flashed text, but today I feel the message that your short 30-second advertising or maybe a 25-minute sitcom gets out is a strong player in what we will become in the future. And a very quick note before I introduce my guest. About 2 days ago, I was watching some old 70s Pakistani film, and I realized what we are today, the problems we have today, are really because of those films. The kind of sentences used, when we look back, were so politically incorrect. They were just so wrong. And those values that were inculcated in those films still remain with us. So we have to be careful and understand how you use media conditioning and what's the impact of media. My guests on my far right, Mr. Nabeel, a young man who is a young entrepreneur, also works with event management. Nabeel, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much for being here.
With him, a dear friend, Ms. Aisha Jabeen. Aisha, thank you very much. Today's show is attributed to you because you came up with the idea. On my left, the one and only Mr. Jamal Mir, CEO of Prestige Communications. Jamal, thank you very much for taking the time out. And with him is Ms. Kanza, who's a businesswoman and co-founder of Free Footwear. Kanza, thank you very much for taking the time out. Aisha, I'm going to start with you, even though you told me not to start with you, but I'm going to start with you. How do you see our media's subliminal power as compared to the subliminal power of the Western media, our neighboring media, Turkish media, Iranian media? How do you see that? How would you compare?
Faisal, the problem, I guess, with our media is that there is no correction process going on simultaneously. So there is nobody to sort of say, keep check. We have PEMRA, and PEMRA does have a lot of censoring for a lot of things that goes on air here in Pakistan. But they don't check if it's in, say, line with what our values are or what the people are like or how it's going to affect the mindset, say, in the next coming generation or the generation ahead. When we talk about, say, media or advertising in, let's just not go very far. Let's look at India. For example, ads in India. India is our neighbor, and being in this belt, even in Pakistan, supposedly, I guess, about 70% of us, we are all wheatish in complexion.
Sure. And
we have certain body image, how we look and feel. That gets all disturbed when I look at our advertising. When we have, say, cricketer coming on air that we know is from our team and is olive-skinned, or somebody who's really, really fair, say he's from up north, and telling us that if you use this brand, if you use this cream, you know, things are going to work out for you, girls are going to flock around you, your wife's going to be all okay with you, and you'll win your fans.
Doesn't work for me.
No, but you're not using that cream then, surely.
Yeah, but I'm already reasonably white, I think.
That's the point. The point is that everybody knows what he looks like, other than that ad. And yet, we go ahead with that ad, we blast the images on air, in the newspapers, and this is just one example.
So you're saying there's no correction? There's
no correction process. There's nobody to speak out and say, hey, this is not going to happen.
When you say there's no correction and there's no check and balance about if something's going against a moral value, whose responsibility? Aisha mentioned PEMRA very conveniently, but whose responsibility is to force that correction?
I guess it's our responsibility as well.
As well?
Yeah.
But who else is?
As she said, the government.
Okay.
They're responsible. The media themselves are responsible. And the society at large, the civil society, they're responsible of what goes on the TV and what is shown in advertisements. And, well, now it's more difficult to control what the media is portraying because now we have the internet. And then we have social media. And YouTube is blocked in Pakistan. But apart from that as well, we have a lot of...
Just for the sake of what's wrong with YouTube being blocked? The government is deciding your moral value. You just said you want that to happen, so they're doing it.
See, blocking the whole website is...
their decision. They're choosing your moral value. You just said it's the government's job.
Yeah.
So they're doing the job.
I think you should be a little selective and...
who should be selective? Who's going to decide the selectivity?
See, Faisal, like he said, if they're going to block YouTube, it's not that you can't get that same video anywhere else online. You can.
No, that's not my discussion. You said it is the government and the PEMRA's job.
No, I'm saying PEMRA does its job. It does censor, but it does not realize that, okay, you're looking at a 30-second ad. Apparently, everything looks okay. There's nothing wrong. No bad words are used. No vulgar images are going on here. And that's it. PEMRA will say, okay, it's all right to go ahead with this. Similarly, our movies. It looks fine on the outside. Go ahead, put it on air. Sometimes the government needs to just keep a little bit, some things in check. But more than the government, it's our responsibility. If we are not going to accept these things, eventually they'll go off air.
Kanza, your take.
Frankly, I think that values should not be defined by your government and they should not be defined by PEMRA per se. Values are something that you bring back from your family. It is something that you are taught at your place. If somebody is shown on TV, you know, dressing a certain way, dancing a certain way, whatever, X, Y, Z, just because I choose not to do it, it's not because the TV is telling me to or not telling me to. It's the value that I have within me, which is different for everyone. The fact that my take on YouTube being blocked
but that's not the discussion today, but I just invoked it for just, for the sake of reference.
But that itself is, I feel, it's the wrong thing, because at the end of the day, blocking something or telling someone not to see something is telling them to not think. And media should make you think about stuff.
Hang on. Okay. Well, then the whole impact of media, the whole media conditioning is worthless then. The whole discussion is worthless because you can think for yourself. Just take a decision which way you want to go.
Well, I can think for myself, but I think for a lot of people, media is the main source of education. For people who don't go to schools, for kids who see TV but they don't have books at home, media is something that's an education.
But they're also not sitting and watching TV.
I'm sure
if they don't have books, they're not going to school, they're not also watching TV. They're probably out there washing cars, unfortunately.
True. But I'm sure that the exposure that they have is more to some sort of a televised concept rather than a book concept.
Jamal, you're in the advertising business, you've got your hands in everything that they're speaking against. Why, where, what's your take generally?
There are multiple levels. I mean, if you're looking at the advertising side of it, there's the responsibility of the client. All companies over here, if it's multinational, national companies, for their own benefit, for their products, they have to sort of work towards the norms of the society. Then you have standards which at an association industry level operates, so there should be advertising standards. Then yes, you have PEMRAs and government policies overall, how the country, I mean, its policy making is, from that perspective, the parameters are drawn, but within that you have freedom in terms of press also. We talk about freedom of press, yes, in terms of highlighting issues, but within that, they have to understand that they have a certain degree of responsibility to the society in the way they're molding them, developing them. We constantly keep hearing today about the quality of programmings, which are very poor, the contents. And the public says it's all because of ratings, because of ratings. Now my question is, the ratings should not be the single most factor. You've got to take a much more long-term view. There's a certain degree of views. We know the literacy level of our society. We understand the drawbacks we have over here. And we also understand within the region, when we compare in Asia, just for instance, let's take Asia, not just India. Every country around Asia, be it China, Thailand, Vietnam, so very close to Burma, they're all developing. And for development, you need to have a little more out-of-the-box thinking. And I think the media has a great responsibility in terms of when they run programs, the moderators, they're there to ensure that the right kind of thought is expressed so people out there can see what different options are there. Not necessarily the way, from 7 to 11, the political programs and talk shows go, where the intent is just to create a bit of a drama and create a lot of sensationalism. And yeah, but we can do with plays and other things also. I think we don't need entertainment out of politics and some serious issues. The way the country is placed today and where it needs to go. So I think from that perspective, yes, freedom in terms of expression, but within that, I think everything works within the norm of the society and the rules.
Okay, Jamal mentioned that we have to understand the literacy rate, we have to understand the demographics. That's fine, but there is another demographic, maybe a smaller demographic, which is us, with people with great understanding, with access to a lot of information. Our silence, I think, is the biggest, which I was saying. I don't think so. If the government decides your morality for you, you're going to start screaming. Because every government will have its own morality.
Yeah.
So the society at large determines your morality. Not me, not her. I could be a drunkard doing whatever, but that's not the nation's morality. The nation's morality is the majority. And one is the uneducated majority, and unfortunately in the underdeveloped world, and the educated majority. Now the educated majority is conveniently silent. The young people, the educated people are conveniently just absorbing everything coming. So let's start with that.
Is that true? What we witnessed during the elections on social media?
They were trolling and misbehaving. They were not really vocal.
I was greatly disappointed. We talked about Tabdili, we talked about change. The youth of this country, which is definitely a very sort of engine of development and progress, but the way they expressed themselves all through this time was greatly disappointing. It just showed a lot of frustration in them and not being logical about things. And I think that was a huge, I would say, a setback or a disappointment for some people who were supporting the youth party PTI. And my question to a lot of my friends in PTI used to be, just read the social media, just look at the way your people are responding. How different are they from the rest of the guys? They should be setting the example in terms of rationale, in terms of issues.
Sure.
There are too many personal attacks on people. We all know that. That's something of which you play to the gallery. So, it's a very delicate while youth is important. We talk about it. I'm sure there are good majorities.
But they are important, but I don't think they're using their importance well.
I agree with that. I fully agree with that.
Well, but you have to behave in a certain way, and you always need to be respectful of the other person's opinion. You need to set an example, like you just mentioned. And since we are going political about this,
I just use it as an example. Where youth came out very recently in abundance, and
see, for me, the biggest tabdili,
the
biggest tabdili and the biggest change was that people went out and vote. Just as a comment.
Fine, I agree with that.
And I'm myself, I would say under 30, then I am representing the youth. I said, I felt that it's okay. I was quite actually happy with the results. I was fine. I was like, okay, this was good, because this is a step ahead.
Sure, but in the larger spectrum, you talk about the advertising, which you don't agree with. There's a lot of TV content you don't agree with. A lot of talk shows you don't agree with. You talk about. But if nobody is agreeing with it, how come they're all doing so well?
Who's doing well?
All this content is doing great.
Well, that's because of lack of opportunities there, because you go ahead and see today Indian content, the way it goes on fire, and recently the Turkish plays. So it just tells you the quality available to people. When these things can just kick off so fast, and what we've been producing for so long does not match up.
No, I'm talking about the acceptability of offensive content, according to Aisha.
Offensive and
advertising, the fairness screams, and that's offensive to her, right?
Yeah.
But how come they're all thriving and doing so well, making mega bucks? out of that
Well,
advertising.
because
He's doing so
on
well.
some level they do play on our own insecurities that are embedded in our society. We are
But they are
post-colonial
politically
nation.
incorrect.
Yes, they are. But you and I know better, right? We went to a school. We know that. Let's just even take this fairness cream example. That if you use these creams, they're going to hurt you in the longer run.
Sure.
You're going to be probably diagnosed with skin cancer. You know, there's a thinning of your skin. There are a lot of things that happen when you do these kind of silly things. You have housewives sitting at home. Let's just look at morning programming. Okay, you have housewives sitting at home, 8 to 11 watching TV, and then there's this garbage that goes on air. I actually, being a media professional myself, having done morning shows, I think this is garbage. I used to do a show that was content based, that was that had 3 anchors. We were doing solid shows, but we didn't get the same ratings. Why didn't we get the same ratings? Because we were talking sense.
No, let me.
We were not doing shadis in morning programs.
Not getting ratings is fair because nobody's watching you. That's fine.
That's fine.
But my point is, and I've always argued about this, and I'm glad you brought this topic up, Kanza, I'd like to come to you, is when we find something offensive, which is politically offensive, we have dharnas.
Yeah.
And those dharnas don't have more than 500 people.
Of course.
400 or 500 people,
Yeah.
great impact. When something is socially offensive, destructive, it is destroying your future, I don't see anybody, I don't see even 100 people saying, what is this?
What would you define socially?
Perfect example of what she's given.
Well, for starters, I think one thing that we're not focusing on, which is a very big factor, is that advertising is paid for. It is paid for by people who are selling products. And product is something that, would thrive the economy, or not the economy, but necessarily a business. At the end of the day, it's a business, whether it's media, whether it's advertising, whether it's anything else. And if they're saying a certain thing about a certain product, they want to sell it. They are catering to, as Aisha said, to the insecurities of the masses, and that is how they're making the money. Now, yes, it's socially offensive, but at the end of the day, it is not brought up because we are too scared to say that, we don't want to be fair, or we are too scared to say that we don't want to be XYZ, whatever the product is giving us. And because at the end of the day, human needs are...
Why are you scared to say that?
Who would say that? Like,
same,
for example,
same people who were sitting and blocking half the city just 8 weeks ago, weren't they scared of the massive backlash?
That, I think, comes to education, because...
That comes to... I think that's where the youth is going wrong.
Yeah.
I think the youth does not really know how to raise an issue. A dharna is...
They were raising the issue quite well 6 weeks ago.
But see, a dharna does not achieve the purpose if an advertisement is not, showing like something which is immoral. If it's showing something immoral, then you go to Teen Talwar and you stage a dharna. Will that serve the purpose?
Morality is not the discussion. I said socially destructive, socially offensive, which is hurting the core values of the future. I'm not concerned with a shadi or a dance or that's everybody's business. But things which can disturb your social structure. I don't know if I should do this on TV. I'm used to getting into trouble, so that's okay. There's advertising which is, I think, offensive to women. Why don't you put men, whenever there's a cooking thing, it's like, oh, the husband comes home and the wife is just, for acceptability and just to have a nice glimpse from a husband has to make a fantastic paratha. Why doesn't the man ever have to make a paratha?
How many times do men make a paratha?
Well, then they shouldn't.
No, I know, but you see, when you talk, even with advertising, we're talking about the skincare.
As an example only.
As an example, but just to sort of clarify that position, they are advertising around the globe. Aisha may not have that kind of relationship with skin color concept, but there is Hispanic advertising, colored advertising in the US.
And now they have fairness mainstream.
Yeah. So I mean, these are needs in the market. They are acceptable.
Sure.
People see it that way. They may have picked up a wrong celebrity. That's a different issue altogether. But I think in terms of advertising, there are very few firms who do misleading advertising. It's just not for profit. I can come out there and make false claim the product will never sell. So the companies we're talking about.
I think misleading is not the issue here. I think the issue is where in this particular series of advertising, I will not take any one product. Generally speaking, in the series of products, the problem is not selling whiteness cream. If she wants to be white, or if he wants, that's their prerogative. And we can buy tanning lotions. That's all right. But the offensive part there is that at the same time they show that if you're not white, you're done.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Okay. But inviting you to be white is fantastic. Please, if you want to be white, he can wear powder for all I care.
No,
but saying that if you are not white, you can just commit suicide. That is a problem.
I don't think that's been said. It's just like
when
you say hair colorants. What's wrong with having normal color hair that you got? So I mean the people.
Absolutely, but
a lot of people go.
Just don't run down those who don't have it.
I don't.
And that's where the problem
They didn't run down that.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's it. He's going to get me in trouble. Let's take a short break. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Perspectives. Beautiful word from Aisha during the break. Negative reinforcement. That I think is what we've been trying to say, and I think you've summed it up in that phrase. Negative reinforcement. And I think talk shows you've talked about, morning shows. I would say 98% of our content is doing that. From film, I would even go as far as saying most of our music is negatively reinforcing. I can't take examples. I don't want to offend people, but there have been phrases which should not be there. Why is our youth, represented by the three of you, is not seeing that negative reinforcement? And if you are seeing that, why are you absorbing it? Why don't I see even 100 comments that this is not right?
Like, see, the music is objective. If you like a certain kind of music, a certain genre of music, somebody else might not. Like some people like electronic music, some people like rock music. So it's very objective.
I'm talking about the words and the lyrics and the concepts, not the type of music is your preference.
Okay, if you come to the lyrics, then as you say that we've been, the Western media and the Western influences are coming here, and that's why we're going towards that.
Okay, and you're accepting of that. The negative reinforcement.
No, I think there are two things. Firstly, I think the internet has sort of completely lifted that aspect. There are blogs online that are criticizing a lot of advertising. There are blogs online that are saying it. Yes, they're less in number. Maybe they're not being read as widely as newspapers because it's free content and maybe it's accessible to a certain amount of people who have internet and a computer. So there is criticism there, and that criticism is from the youth, because I do not know people who are writing blogs about advertising. I know a lot of blogs that do that. I am following those. Second of all, something that we discussed before the break was socially what is defined and what is inappropriate. I think the fact that somebody has an ad where the wife is cooking and the guy comes home from his job and, whatever the product is being advertised, I think that is the social aspect that has already been defined. So what is, at the end of the day, socially inappropriate? Socially inappropriate is something that questions the norm of sociability that's already there. If our society is predominantly housewife society and something that questions it is put forward, where there's a female who's suddenly coming home and the guy is sitting, everyone's going to cause an uproar, because that is not acceptable to the society. So,
Jamal, would it cause an uproar if we slowly try to steer the society in a different direction? I'm not taking any particular example, but general steering, slow steering.
I don't think so. I think over here, what I've seen on all forums, and obviously the way the environment is, we all make politically correct statements, and that's why there's not much differentiation when you see things, because you're not getting a different point of view. Everybody may have a different personal point of view, but on an open forum, they would like to express what will be acceptable, because the level of tolerance is very low in the country on issues. And I think from that perspective, the development, the incremental thinking, doesn't come through. The out-of-the-box thinking never happens. I mean, at any level you go into your associations, you go to the government, and even in terms of PEMRA and all.
Does this lack of tolerance come into discussion when we're talking to clients and when you're saying let's do something different with advertising and the same?
In some instances, yes. There's a lot of it. I mean, I myself feel that over a period of time, my experience 15 years back with marketing heads were far better than what it is today. There's a lot of young people who are sitting in those positions to make decisions. I think there's a lack of respect and understanding of the business, and that's my constant discussion I go with them. You have people sitting on the other side who probably have never shot a film in their life or ever been on a shoot, but they are approving your scripts and passing comments like as if they were experts. So there's a lot of trust because that idea, then there's a point where the commercial angle comes in and you say, all right, I did my best to express myself, it didn't happen, so why don't I be more compliant and see it more from a commercial business point of view and get a billing out of it.
If you don't do it, somebody else will.
Exactly. So, I mean, those kind of issues has been confronted many a times. And I don't think that's good because there is a lot of potential in the people out here because these are the same people when they go overseas, they excel and deliver because the environment is such that there's accountability, there's a certain amount of discipline required over there, there's a certain amount of commitment.
Coming from the society.
From the society. Over here, the overall...
the society is lax.
Yeah, I mean, I think the value system over a period of time, it's a whole generation, which, I mean, today, I'm very surprised with a lot of younger lot, I mean, the issues they have when they talk about freedom, they somehow figure that the equation is complete freedom plus responsibility. It's not just freedom.
Exactly.
you try to discipline in terms of coming on punctuality. For them, it's a huge issue, and to me, it's just work ethics. It doesn't need an extra effort to be able to come on time.
That's just an assumed understood.
Yeah,
what's the discussion on that?
You sit there and you talk to these people, and then there's no institutional thinking. It's a very personal thinking. I don't like this. Okay, you may not like it, but when you're working in an organization, an institution, there are certain norms, certain systems that have been adopted, and these are acceptable. These are best practices in the market. So you have to learn to live within them. That appreciation is not there.
So the blame is again shifting to the young generation of
It's not young generation. It's the overall society. I think the blame lies with our parents.
Yes,
and I'll tell you why.
But let me just interject and then you answer, please. It is a society, but this young, educated, vibrant, brilliant new generation is in charge. Your parents, our parents, educated us. Now what we do with it is our responsibility.
Absolutely.
You can't blame them.
So that's what I'm saying. If I'm here and today questioning what goes on air and that there should be an accountability to it, that means that I am rejecting to accept what is being fed to me. If I am supposed to be doing more than I am here and I'm representing the youth and I am saying that this is not okay and I'm not going to be a party to it. Like Jamal just mentioned, tolerance is, and then thinking out of the box, taking that forward. We spoke, and I'm just not sort of trying to beat the same story again and again, but when we spoke about the fairness cream and the body issue
back on the fairness cream.
and the body issue, and I'm a girl, I'm a woman, and I'm a young woman, and I see people my age in this society suffering from complexes.
Fair point.
I see them thinking that they lack something or they're not good enough, or that they need to be, or they're born with some lesser ability, or they cannot compete with others on the same ground until and unless they look a certain way, or they, so there are major body image issues with people my generation, especially the women. So when Jamal mentioned the point about tolerance and all, and we were talking about why people, the marketing heads, sometimes they don't want to think outside the box and then they don't do a lot of research. Why don't we think about, there's an international brand, and I don't want to take any names here, but I recently saw this whole campaign they did on women, in which they had somebody who was a sketch artist from, I guess, the CIA or somebody, and he would sit, and then there used to be these women sitting on the other end, and he would not see them. And he would sketch them according to how other people have seen those women.
Exercise,
so that exercise has been done. People are trying to tell you that you're beautiful the way you are, all shapes, all sizes.
Yeah, but we are a long way away from that one.
Yes,
where we will accept all.
Like you mentioned, we need to slowly start changing.
Right.
We need to start the process. I remember this whole halla gulla that we had on the roads about the lawn ads. They were splattered with paint and there was this huge uproar. Why, bhai? I mean, the intellectual people have said it. Real tolerance comes from saying, okay, this thing exists in the society. I'm not okay with it, but it's okay that if it exists, if it's catering to some. We need to develop that kind of tolerance.
The majority we have to. Aisha says, I disagree. The younger majority is now finally speaking up. Frustrated, yes. Lost, yes. But people are speaking up. My point is they're speaking up without census noise. But she said media is a tool powerful than all the rest. What will get us to use it to its full potential?
I think some sort of direction. One thing that I do disagree with is that that the youth is not, speaking up or whatever, and that they're not speaking up in a certain way. The reason that they're speaking up in such a haphazard way is because there has been no direction, there has been no sense of law, there has been nothing there that has been able to provide security to us or provide something to us, and now we are sick of it. And yes, we're all over the place, and yes, we're saying that, we're trying to use all the mediums that are available to us, but at the same time, it's because, the youth has had enough. And before that, had they had that sort of security, had they had that sort of education, had they had that access to them, where there was a certain sort of a structure of a society where they lived in, then obviously it wouldn't be that haphazard. So I'm not saying that we should blame our elders, and I'm not saying that we should blame anyone for that matter, but those are the problems that are in Pakistan.
Is your generation at a loss? Do you have these issues, or you have the resource and the structure to get on?
Of course, we have the resources. We have more resources than the previous generations now. But then again, as Kanza said, that we do need direction in a better way. We do protest against everything that we see, but on the social media. We update our Facebook status, we go on Twitter, and...
But you'd be surprised how powerful that is. That is not so powerless.
Of course, that is. But as I said, that we are using some mediums that are available to us, but we need to go on more mediums, and we need to go on more forums to express our liking and disliking.
Yeah, the biggest thing is just hit them where it hurts.
Stop buying.
Stop buying that. Stop buying that.
Mr. Simon says Mr. Jamal's advertising company feeds on these ads.
On what ads?
The ads that we argue about.
That's not true at all. Because like I said, I mean, you're talking one particular ad on the fairness screen.
No,
but all I'm saying is, I have not seen too many examples out there for mainstream advertising where, like I said, it's misleading or derogatory or is putting down anyone. I don't think any client...
Derogatory, yes. Misleading, no.
I don't know. I mean, that can be a long-term debate on that.
Well, negative reinforcement is derogatory.
If again we go back to that one example, I don't think.
Okay, if you
because I can. I mean, like there's suntan lotions also ads going on where you want to darken your skin.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So
there's nothing wrong with that.
Maybe that one was not executed well. Maybe there were some things which had.
That's each one of them.
No. I cannot believe because the kind of market share that cream has.
No, I don't even know which one it is.
It would not be.
There are quite a few of them.
But I'm talking the Fair and Lovely one. Let me just name it. That's a huge success story. So it couldn't be based.
And I don't even know if they have this problem. But I'm just thinking if also let's take it just like a step further. A lot of advertising came out of India, which was very socially motivating. It was advertising, but very motivating. We tried to replicate that to the extent that somebody actually 100% copied the ad and then pulled it back. After like 2 runnings, somebody said, you've copied it completely. We do not have that kind of subliminal improvement messages in not just advertising. So I'm not going to put you on the spot there, but even in our plays, even in our dramas, we do not have that subliminal improvement, family value, truth, punctuality, social values. They're not being reinforced wearing a seatbelt. Simple stuff. I remember Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahuti, or one of those shows where Tulsi once sat in a car and first thing was wait and you seatbelt. Subliminal?
Yeah.
But you just make it fashionable. So I don't see that happening with us. Why is I open to all of it?
I would like to add to that one thing that the Indian media does teach is tolerance, and it also teaches the difference of opinion. What I agree with and what you agree with may be completely different things. But if I am given the power, I will try to, say that no, you're wrong, I'm right. Now, the thing with the Indian media is that there's so much diversity in India, if you've ever been there, that people understand that there are different religions, and they understand that and somebody else has an opinion and they're entitled to it. The major problem with Pakistan is that, yes, we have a majority. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's a good thing, because, that's how our country is structured. But at the same time, we do not understand that there are people who can have opinion which is completely different from yours, and it can still be right. Because at the end of the day, it is just opinion. So,
but is that a problem among your lot as well, among your peers?
I mean, yeah, I know that there are a lot of people who would not agree with, for example, if women working, I mean, even now, I'm not saying that necessarily the uneducated.
Okay,
but,
you've raised a fantastic point, Jamal, and I want all of you to comment on this. That's my problem. When you said, if you can't show a man sitting home and making the paratha, but when will that ever change unless if we start slipping it in?
No, where it's relevant, it will be included.
But it hasn't yet been included.
Our responsibility, if the media has this kind of power over the masses, I mean, it's okay to slowly start changing them. I mean, you have to prepare them to accept what is to come later.
I fully agree. Like I said, media was a big novelty after PTV, that, private channels came in and there was a lot of freedom. But, fine, we've landed. Now let's start playing our role, and I think we've left that far behind. We're still continuing in the status quo.
What's happened has happened.
Let's move on. It's a huge responsibility. I'll tell you a very good example. Times of India made a presentation in Karachi, their marketing head. It was an All Pakistan Newspaper Society function, and this is through Aman Ki Aisha. And Times of India explained how national issues were addressed by the media every time. If India wanted to open up its economy, how a certain amount of editorial will be written where people will understand the advantage of it. When they wanted to build up Bollywood,
they basically come in from all directions.
So they start helping people start thinking from a different point of view.
Thank you. Absolutely.
And that is what is required over here. I tell people, more than the nuclear thing, it's that 180 million people out there who have got wrong notions about things over here. And we continue to reinforce those back at them simply because we are not...
And it's about every level.
And the unfortunate thing is, when we travel so much outside today, and with internet and all these, people are exposed. So there'll be a lot of more frustrations, there'll be a lot of more clashes. I mean, even in the region when you go around, I'll tell you a very classic example. I was in China about 3-4 months back, and I went to Tiananmen Square and I went to see Mao's body over there embalmed. And there's 40,000 people, 35,000 people there, and we quickly went right through it. And I asked these people, how come they're not tourists? This is all local Chinese. So they're saying, no, we need to reinforce those values of our leaders and things. And I was saying, I go to China, I see this. I go to the US and I go to Jefferson Memorial and Lincoln Memorial and I see all the sayings out there.
It's constant reinforcement.
It's entertainment. There's people coming out there. There's going out. So how many people do I see at Qaid-e-Azam Mazar and Iqbal's Mausoleum? Other than the...
3 tweets which I need to include. Maham says our society thrives on the media throwing more dramatic content our way rather than commonsensical stuff. And she says, is our society capable of picking up positive subliminal messages, or will we focus on the dramatic quotient? I think the society is helpless at subliminal messaging. It happens. That's why it's subliminal. But Saima says, will Mr. Jamal come in an ad where a man is making the parathas?
I love parathas, I may.
There you go. There's your answer. I have a couple of minutes. Any closing notes, any closing comments you'd like to make?
I would.
Please.
Yeah. Faisal, the thing is that, for instance, saying that this particular issue is, very, very relevant, but at the same time, what we need to keep in mind is that if India has, I don't know why we compare ourselves to that, first of all, but even since we do, the fact that they have editorials written about them is because they want, the government, for instance, wants the economy to grow. What happens in a communist country, for instance, is that, something is not that open. So if you have information coming in from all angles, it's because it's better for the country, it's better for the economy. Now, I won't say that it is against the government's incentive to educate the masses, but that could be one of the factors, which is why, we are not figuring that education glitch out.
It's a huge factor.
And
the single important factor.
But let me just add, it's not stopping me from writing good content about Pakistan. It's not stopping me from behaving better in front of the world. And it's not stopping us from forcing people who do not behave to behave well. We unfortunately let it happen. Closing comments.
I think all institutions, be it civil society, be it media, be it judiciary, be it politicians, we all need to think a little big and see how we can take it forward and talk about issues which will help build the nation. Enough of point scoring. I think we point scored for so many years.
Yeah.
And that has just stopped a lot of good people from coming out and saying the right things also, because they feel it's just going to be drowned under this politics. So I think we really need to speak the truth now. There's too much.
Nabeel.
I think all of us, all the institutions in the society, we need to accept our responsibility, and we need to see what is our value system and act according to it, and also be more responsible, as I said. And yeah.
Aisha.
I would just say that we are in this country. Let's just put it. I mean, how many of us go to private schools?
Sure.
Everybody, most of our children go to government schools. We are taught not to question. Start questioning, and even at home, allow your kids to question, but teach them responsibility. If they are given certain freedom, if they're given certain space, they should be responsible about it. How to go about it responsibly. That way, we are going to build a value system where we will be more tolerant. We will understand what is a difference of opinion and accepting it, and then being more responsible about it. And then, Faisal, also, I mean, this is something I'm saying personally. We should not say that our youth is out there, is not responsible. It's because our parents also don't know how to handle all of this. They were not taught to question. I know this from personal experience. And they wanted to question, they were told to shut up.
Different world. I don't buy that.
So that's a different world. I'm speaking about the majority of this country.
Thank you very much, all of you. Maham. We have two. We have Sama Kidwai and Maham Kidwai. I suppose you guys are sisters or friends or whatever. But Maham has said that media should also find unity in the message it spreads. Absolutely. But the nation needs to find unity. There has to be a common national agenda. We can argue about everything. But when it comes to common national agenda, we should all come together. That's unfortunately where we're lacking. I was very sad to see in this election, a lot of talk shows were, we've always complained about two politicians fighting and screaming at each other, but that was okay. But unfortunately, what we saw in the last few months was they had youth groups standing against each other from political parties and screaming and fighting. That was unnecessary. We need to tell our young generation to discuss, argue, debate constructively and respectfully. We need to now learn that we all have opinions. Let's talk about it. Maybe you're right, maybe you're not right. Doesn't matter. But let's hear it. Even if you hear absolute nonsense, it might trigger us to think. Learn to think and decide for yourself. Until next time, good night.